And welcome again to another live stream of Star Trek Revisited, the original series. I am Mando on Fire, joined by me by my brother Paul from Phantomology and Dr. McCoy as usual. How's everybody
Hello.
doing
Yes.
tonight?
Doing really well.
That's good. So, I must admit that last stream, last week when we were doing this, I actually had neglected to watch one episode, but that's completely fine because we've actually took care of all of that and just decided to enter it into this bracket. And I would say it was a very good decision on our ends because at least it gives us more minutes on stream.
And hello, Action Com, who says, "Where's the punch bowl?" Unfortunately, we do not have any punch bowls. And Phil, before you even get here, we also do not have any McDonald's coupons. Besides, I already gave you some.
But I'm sure that there's more the Skyrim on the way.
Yes.
Because there's always some more Skyrim.
There's always more Skyrim. Skyrim is never ending.
Exactly.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and get started then and just jump right into what little girls are made of. Take it away, Mike.
Yeah. I would say with this episode, I would say it's probably the best episode in this entire sort of brackets. Whereas, even though for now it doesn't seem like there's anything that I would consider a bad episode, it's just not as great, I would say. But it was definitely one of the best episodes for this bracket, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah. This episode is a bit interesting because it introduces the idea of artificial intelligent beings, and I know that in prior or other science fictionalizations, there's always robots and all that, but a full-on android that is very human-esque. I don't recall how many other sci-fi shows have really pushed that idea, let alone pulled it off on TV. And the one thing I will say about this episode, it's Star Trek, where Captain Kirk loves the women and the women are beautiful.
And I'm gonna say this right now, Andrea, second most beautiful woman in this show, behind, again, I keep blanking out on her name, but the one blonde-haired yeoman from the episode The Apple in season 2.
Oh yeah. So we'll get to that person soon, but if you notice, Lurch is kind of lurking and lurching and causing death and destruction and mayhem.
Yeah, can we just get a zoom in on Rook for a minute? Because you pretty much got to appreciate how this character was designed. Like, I don't know if either of you are familiar with the Giga Chad meme, but it kind of reminds me of that, but better.
A Giga Chad, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's about as Giga Chad as you get back then. He's built.
Yeah. Because I didn't expect him to be an android at first, which of course I didn't know that androids were going to be part of this episode. I just kind of jumped right into it, not really expecting much.
Well, this is the one thing that you notice as you go through Star Trek, especially if you decide to dive into Next Generation, you'll get to Data, and Data is a very specific type of android. Whereas in this series, with the type of computing systems and all that, these are a very different style or subset of androids. And whenever you're dealing with artificial intelligence and the power of creation beyond what what God has given us, you're monkeying with things that ought not be messed with. And each and every time that Star Trek deals with artificial constructs, at least in the original series, we see why we shouldn't do it. And also, what the hell does Captain Kirk have? It may be a piece of rock, but
I know.
I think someone played a trick on everybody, and how it got past the censors, I have no idea.
You know what? Let's just do it for the heck of it, PJ. Let's just do it.
Language, and for gosh sake, watch your language.
Though in this case, not for language, for imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea how they got
on them.
past.
Imagery on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I will say this, since we're talking about the idea of androids and how specifically this show is handled. Unless I'm forgetting something, there's specifically 3 episodes, counting this one, that handle androids. In fact, one, I believe, for each season. Now, the one in season 2, without going into too many spoilers, will be far less serious than this one. But the third one is going to have one of the most heartbreaking endings, right, Brandon?
Yeah, that it does. And although this one does have it is a bit heartbreaking for Nurse Chapel, but
I
actually do like the second one because who ends up getting scolded by an ever-ending stream of his wife.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
There's
another thing too.
Saying Palmas Volcano Rock, washing your hands.
Yeah. But this is a great episode. It really does set a decent tension there at the beginning. Of course, having Lurch, who had done Adam, the guy that is in this has done Adam's Family for the year or two that it was on the air. So it gave a little bit of credence to the sci-fi terror aspect of this episode.
Yeah. Even though this was by no means a sci-fi terror, they still were able to make him a part of this episode very well.
I wouldn't necessarily call it terror. If anything, I would call it intrigue. More of what's going to happen next, where it's got your attention.
Yeah, because
okay, I can deal with that.
I think when we first saw Rook in this episode, he's taking out one of the second guys that were part of
one of the red shirts.
Yeah, one of the red shirts.
It establishes that red shirts are expendable.
Speaking of which, PJ, look what you're wearing.
Red shirt.
And I don't know. I would also say that for Andrea, she's very expressionless for the most part by just looking at her face. Like, she's just completely expressionless. Like, she won't even crack a smile unless she's told to.
Yeah, like that one scene where she's told, kiss Captain Kirk, and then she does. And he's like, okay, now hit him. See? No emotion.
Yeah.
Yep. No emotion. But I will say this about it. It does have a very interesting end to it.
Yes.
And it also kind of deals with a robot, with an artificial construct that possibly is maybe starting to go into the side of feeling things, or when it realizes that it can't, it's committing a self-deletion. But here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about Kirk. This is not the first time that he outwits an AI.
No, in fact, that's kind of aside from the whole red shirt thing and the whole I'm a doctor, not a insert adjective here, that's kind of a running joke with this show, is that Kirk finds some way to literally outsmart machines.
Yeah.
But speaking of someone that thinks like a machine that Kirk has never been able to outsmart, please welcome Spock. In fact, I'm going to move Spock and Dr. McCoy next to each other.
Yeah.
Hello.
I've been waiting.
Spock!
I'm literally excited because I've only been in the TNT maybe once that I can remember, and now that we're going through the series again in production order, it gets a whole lot better. So I'm excited that you're here. Thank you.
And
Spock,
it's
good to see you, Michael.
And Spock, I know you can't stay long, but just so you're aware, we're covering 6 episodes tonight. We're covering What Little Girls Are Made Of, Dagger of the Mind, Miri, Conscience of the King, Galileo 7, and Court Martial. Basically, we're going
Galileo 7.
We're going production order this time.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying this, Michael, going through this. Have you seen TOS before?
I tried getting into it a few times, but for some reason I just never got myself really interested up until what has it been, like a month ago, PJ?
Something like that.
Yeah, like a month ago when...
This is our third show of it.
Yeah, like a month ago when...
That's awesome, man.
PJ decided
this is my personal favorite Star Trek show out of all the other ones. And this is also a good episode right here, What Little Girls Are Made Of. Although it's probably one of those, other people would say kind of moderate kind of episodes, but it's this is season 2. This is season 2, correct?
Season 1.
Nope, season 1.
Oh, season 1. Okay.
Yeah. As we're going by production order, so
right.
It'll be a little bit different.
Well, I'll be dang.
Season 2 is my favorite season, especially for the first episode. I can't wait till you get to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, Paul knows why.
Oh yes, I do, and I can't say.
Okay.
But yeah, it's good. It was really good to be here though, because I won't be able to stay along, but I'm hoping that you guys are gonna keep doing this because I'd love to join you down next week. Because this week I just started college again, so I've just been really busy. I haven't really been on any streams. I usually join Mike too for his pop talks, but I haven't really any time, and it's kind of a bummer because I do miss everybody on here. So it's just I've been more trapped in my room now, just doing hundreds of different, because I'm getting a bunch of math classes, so I'm trying to get into C++ and all that kind of stuff, so it's just been a lot of heavy work, but it's good to see you all. It's really good to see you, and you too, Brandon, or should I say Dr. McCoy.
Yes.
The not cringe Dr. McCoy.
So what went with you going with Dr. McCoy? I'm curious.
Well, because we're going back through the original series, so I thought, you know what?
Is your favorite character?
No. Well, maybe. I don't know. He kind of sort of is, but, let me see if I can find it here. Where did I put it? Ah, yes. You got McCoy, and then you have, hold on, let me make sure I got the set right. Make sure, okay, I do have a set right, okay. Cringe McCoy. McCoy. Cringy. Happy. What the hell?
Yeah.
And real quick, Spock, I'll mention this too. There will come a certain point, because of course on Tuesdays we're still going through the Next Generation, and we are probably about 2/3 of the way done with Season 5. But the plan, at least for now, is once we're done with Season 5, we're going to completely take a break from the Next Generation, and this show is going to pretty much take over Tuesday Night Trek, and it'll be like TNT Retro or something like that. And we'll keep going, basically retreading the same old ground until Michael has now seen Next Generation Season 5. By then, we can continue into Season 6 and Deep Space Nine pretty much all together.
Sounds good. Yeah. I like that.
Most excellent.
And real quick...
go ahead.
I want to say hello to Old Man, who I have spoken to multiple times through Baron Orman Tag. And I do also want to, by the way, send all well wishes to Baron Orman Tag. He is unfortunately dealing with COVID, as I found out today on Twitter. So get well,
I'm sorry
Baron.
to hear that.
And Old Man, I know we were last time we were on stream together, you were talking about this show. Would you like to join
Old
us
Man.
on this panel?
Is that actually Jeff Bridges in the chat?
That's his username, Old Man. But yeah, if you want to talk about this show with us, you are certainly welcome, and I will put the link in the chat for you.
Yeah. But I also think that it's very interesting, just based on the motivations of Dr. Corby, where the reason why he's doing this is because he believes that androids are like the answer to cheating death. Where I'm sure that if you haven't heard at least once before, cheating death is never a good thing, because it's always going to end up in failure.
To cheat death is a power only one has achieved, but if we work together, perhaps we can discover its secrets.
Yes.
Yep, there's a lot of...
There's an old argument.
A lot of maniacal maniacs out there that keep trying to think that melding with the machine is going to somehow make them superior and or live forever, but Yeah, it's a foolhardy.
It's an ancient argument, but it's an ancient argument, but it still holds weight till today. You know, people like you said, we'll just go ahead and name them because like they are already public with that's what their intentions are. SpaceX, you know, Elon Musk is one of those people who are pushing for AI integration with humans. But here's the thing: it's just not. It's an ancient argument, and my stance on it is probably shared by others and also probably not shared by others. But I think that the fact that we don't already have that potential naturally, even through years of evolution, the fact that we're not supposed to be immortal should say something. It's not natural. We're not supposed to have that kind of access to life because things are supposed to die and things are supposed to repeat. That's just, if you live... There's like an interesting episode in the Orville, even without spoiling too much, about a race that does achieve that immortality, lives forever, never experiencing what death is, and they literally, they like with guinea pigs, they test little other societies that they find and try to experience what death is like behind their eyes because they don't know what the feeling is of being. Yeah, so it's like there's that part of immortality, so it's just not natural. It's not something to strive for at all.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the lesson of this episode.
Real quick, I want to bring in another member to the panel. Please welcome Old Man. How are you, sir?
Hello.
Oh, I am great. Thank you for allowing me to be in here again and
of course.
Your whole program.
Oh, no problem. Yeah. Like I said, I know the last time we were talking together on Baron's show, we had brought up this, and you mentioned that you didn't quite watch it live when it came out, but you like watched it in the 70s when it was like getting really, really popular. So I thought you could bring a unique point of view to this.
There was no way in the world I could watch it while slogging around in the mud. And
true.
As you know, when we get into some place where they had connections, you could see some of this every once in a while. And I mean, I can't even remember which ones I saw. Believe it or not, I saw probably more Doctor Who than I saw of Star Trek.
Okay.
The big part to it was when it was one of those that kind of grabbed me a bit. But I did see it back then. So when it came out as reruns, you know, I jumped on it. And I tuned in. I watched the first one. I went, bad episode. Watch the second one and go, oh yeah, that's it. I'm in.
Yeah. Awesome. Anyways, Spock.
Big time was like a piece of the action. The tribbles. You know, good old mud. I just hook, line, sinker, wheel me in.
Yes,
I never laughed so hard during piece of the action when Kirk was trying to drive that Model A.
That's a season 2 episode, Michael. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah. But anyway, Spock, kind of going somewhat off topic, but also somewhat relevant to what you were saying. You remember the episode "The Naked Time"?
Yes.
Where when we were talking about that, I said that as insane of an episode that it was, it did actually raise a lot of questions from the one character that first went insane, where he makes these comments saying, well, if man was meant to fly, then maybe he would have wings.
He would have wings.
If man was in space, then he wouldn't need air to breathe.
You know, that's a really good point you're bringing up, because that's the one thing I always think about in Star Trek. I always refer back to that one scene, because it, even though he was crazy, you have to think about that, whatever you want to call it, that virus that they were inhabiting. It might have been them being drunk, but also think about sometimes people who are drunk tend to spill the truth like unknowingly. So maybe that was what he was saying, like his deepest thoughts is maybe we shouldn't be in space. Like, look at all the horrible things that are happening. Maybe that was the first time in the original series we got a perspective from just a normal crewmate of what his life is like during the Klingon Federation War. He's like, why are we doing this? Maybe we shouldn't even be up here. Maybe we should just be back on Earth where it's paradise, because, you know, it's a very grounded argument to bring up, because a lot of people don't want, till this day, you know, there are a lot of space fairs. There are people who want to go to space and become an astronaut, and then you have your people who don't want to go anywhere near space, who are actually scared of the idea of going to space. So
Right.
It's kind of
it's a real fear. Yeah.
Because of that, what they're talking about there. That was after I came back from a little place called Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that. And my mind went through that as, yeah, why didn't I just stay home? Well, that ain't the answer. There's always something there that we've got to do. We're human.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't we all just stay on the East Coast and not expand to the West and never get to the Rocky Mountains and California?
Yeah.
Gee, better yet, why did we even leave England to come here? You know, there's a never-ending list of things of what happened because we did. Well, look at the things that happened because we did.
Yeah, exactly. There are some positives, and there are good things for taking a step where people are too scared to take a step. Where, you know, like if we didn't, our own history, if we've never taken a step, we wouldn't really have the country we have today. A lot of important steps were taken, very bold steps, I might add. But
y'all have to remember, to quote Captain Kirk himself in a future episode, Michael, risk is our business.
Yeah.
That's the reason this ship exists. That's why.
And that shows you the difference between different personalities of how that is still relevant within Star Trek, that even though this is a very flourished society and there is no murder and stuff like that, people are all on the same page, you still have your casual disagreement of whether people should be in space or people shouldn't be in space. And there's people like Kirk who are saying, well, that's the whole point we're up here, is to risk that, to explore, to be, that's the human nature, is to be curious and to learn. So that's always been a very interesting divide within Star Trek, that I've always noticed. That's very subtle, but if you're a keen watcher, you'll notice that kind of stuff and think about it after the episode's over, you know, because they present a lot of overwhelming stories within each episode that you just have to start pondering about it later on, and you think about, like, oh my god, I didn't even realize, you know, that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, that would make sense. And also,
but Star Trek
too is, for this in particular episode, I wanted to bring up the old ones, as Rook had called it, or the older people from this particular planet, because I think I got somewhat of what they were saying, but at the same time, I was still trying to make sense of it. I kind of had a hard time connecting some of those dots. So what were your some thoughts on Rook's, I don't want to say the word ancestors, but his older masters before Dr. Corby?
For me, it kind of reminded me a little bit, now that I think of it, of the people from Talos 4 in the cage.
Yes.
Where they found this new technology or this new power and focused too much on that. And in the end, albeit through very different means, it came back to bite them. Of course, with the Telosians, it led to themselves degenerating physically, although they possessed superior mental powers. And in the case of the old ones, it ended with the machines turning on them.
Yeah, which makes sense.
You know, take a line from a movie said by a certain guy that we all love very deeply, a certain guy that likes his whiskey and plays with Transporter. The fancier they make it, the easier it is to stop up the plumbing.
That is true.
And you got to keep it simple. So even when you make a great technical advancement, you got to remember everything around it.
Yeah.
To advance forward. I mean, how many years? I can remember very well, folks, back when these funny little things we're on right now, called computers, were absolutely totally brand new. And they were saying, who wants to buy this stupid little thing like this that does that? There's no market for it. Well, guess what? They didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Look at we are today. But now what's our mistake today? We're putting too much into the computer and not enough into what we were from.
That is unfortunately true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just to bring up like the whole premise of this episode of like artificial intelligence and stuff like that, how much do you guys personally think that's a real threat? I think that technology is always going to get smarter to the point where it can help us and assist us, but to the point where it can think on its own, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go into that far, because that's like saying we're playing God, which I don't think any of us can really possess.
Which that
scared of.
Which that is another conversation.
But it's just like, where do you guys stand on how much... Yeah. I personally don't see that being a real threat, but you know what? Like I said, I also might not know what I'm talking about. In 30 years from now, there might be a robot talking to me about how my day was. So,
well, supposedly we had that Google engineer that went public with the fact that their AI, that the AIs that they're monkeying with there has already started to show, be able to pass the Turing test. That's a bit on the what the hell side, the Turing test. Basically, the Turing test is a test that was designed by Alan Turing to separate, or to set of questions, make it to where you can tell the difference between a computer and a human. Supposedly, what this guy claimed is that the AI that they have been developing there at Scroogle is to the point where he could not differentiate it, and he's like, holy crap, we've gone too far. So he starts saying, hey, to his superiors, we need to take a step back, think about this a bit, maybe stop for a smidge and do more research into this before we basically screw up. And then he said nope and canned him. So he went public with what he was seeing.
I think it's very possible, though, that humanity is capable. Since we are very achieving, since we've seen in the last 30 years, we can really step up in terms of technology. But our engineering skills are great. But I'm very certain that one day we could build something to the point where it's just way too smart to where we think and perceive that it's actually real. It's actually it's sentient. That it's actually a person. But really, in the reality is, we just built something that's just too damn smart, and it's just a machine. And to end it with, it's just...
Sorry about this.
Language, and for gosh sake, watch your language.
Sorry.
It's all right. Go ahead, old man.
We can program ourselves.
Yeah.
To do things, and we do it every day. We do it from infancy. Okay? Take a machine, a computer, set it out there, plug it in, and see what it can do from there. It can't. It needs somebody to put the program in and tell it what to do. As long as we stay on top of that and don't go with this, but look how wonderful the computer can program itself. Now you're walking into dangerous ice.
Yeah.
As soon as you got a computer,
that's where Google's currently at.
Itself without a soul, without anything.
It's just following programming.
Yeah, you've got a really dangerous thing that will destroy humans.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, it's not exactly thinking for itself. It's not at all sentient. But we had built something just beyond machinery, something that we can't even comprehend. It's just technology meant for another civilization, pretty much, that can understand it.
And there are so many different movies that explore this, from the Matrix to the Terminator franchise.
I'm very certain that we're capable. Yeah, Matrix is a good example, because those things aren't technically alive. They just are following programming, and they're following it in the wrong steps, because now they're they're destroying humanity in order to preserve themselves. So it's like we can eventually, I can see ourselves accidentally making horrible code where they're following the coding, they're actually doing everything correct, except we made the error that said, you can do all of this, but we never clarified what that meant, and then they just go ham and destroy all of the cities that they want to, all of the people that they want to, simply because their programming is telling them to. Not because they want to, because they have evil intentions. Remember, they're just robots, and I'm very certain that at one point we could get to that point where we just make something a little bit too smart. But artificial intelligence, I don't think so. I mean, maybe another civilization across the stars has managed to do something like that, but it's very, it's way too extreme. Like, we'd have to have god powers to give something sentience. I don't even think we can make a machine that can think.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's too much.
I got two to jump in here. One, Action Cam brought it up. Ever see War Games?
That is on the list.
It is a really big one. Another one to see is a cute little movie that is really, I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's definitely a 70s movie. The music in it is absolutely fantastic. Believe me, I love it. But that movie, Edgar, the computer that comes to life because somebody spilled their coffee on it.
That's what it's called, Edgar?
No, that's the computer's name.
Oh, okay. Let me look this up real quick.
Yeah. And I guess while you do that, kind of bringing up another part of the conversation when it comes to AI becoming so advanced is, I would say two things actually. The first thing being Andrea somehow showing some signs of what we would call emotion, even though it's such an abstract idea.
Yes, Electric Dreams. ActionCom had it right here.
That's where, that's the point where I step into artificial intelligence is like, well, how the hell are we going to code emotions? We don't even know what makes up our own emotions.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. As well as the fact that what I found crazy was Dr. Corby being an android himself, where he makes a direct reference to something called, what was the term that he used when he was making an android?
Well, like in number 5 Alive, what was the one thing that they're pushing on 5?
Yeah.
To be human, you got to have a sense of humor.
Yeah, because I think it has
humor. Now, what is Saudi Arabia? No, it wasn't Saudi Arabia. It was another country that made the stupid piece of junk into a citizen of their country.
ActionCom also is mentioning a Short Circuit.
Oh yeah, that's the one with number 5 is Alive.
Okay.
But what I'm talking about is an actual real country, and I got a mental block on the country. It's another Middle Eastern country, where Hanson Robotics came up with this android that they bring in, Sophia, I think it's called, and it's been in all programs and everything else. Sophia is so intelligent. No, it ain't. There's somebody back screen going da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, programming it in. But people are buying a bill of goods on that piece of junk.
I'm sorry, Dave.
I just now looked
at it. But I can't open the door for you. I'm sorry. It was Saudi Arabia that actually appointed its first non-living entity as a citizen of its country.
Yes.
That robot is inferior to an actual human, but it is quite disturbing, and it will be the undoing of that country.
What the heck?
Yeah. And that, by the way, is what its
I've
brain
seen
looked
this. Like. Yeah.
At the very least,
okay, this is what I was gonna say because like I completely forgot it almost. Until we're at that point, and I'm not a doctor or by any means have I kept up with the latest book on the brain, but if we can understand every single neuron, every single thing and from what I understand, we don't know exactly how the brain works. Otherwise, I don't know. I think we'd be a little bit more smart for anything that, in terms of medication, we wouldn't have any side effects if we knew exactly how the brain worked.
They are going absolutely insane over what makes a person left-handed, what makes them right-handed.
See, so like even that's not even figured out yet. When we get to the point where we can literally create a brain, I'm not talking about one made from gears and metal, where we can literally create a brain from scratch. If we can do that, then yeah, I'm certain that maybe one day we might be able to create artificial intelligence. But for right now, we don't even know how our own brain works. How the heck are we supposed to develop one? That's the only thing.
We're only. But your brain is not powerful enough to run my software.
He has 32 gigabytes more RAM than me.
Okay, take a guy that got a stroke, right? He's paralyzed. They say one part of his brain is dead, but when they do the little test, they call da. And they say no. And what is it? 6 months later, they're using what was no longer supposed to be able to be used. Why? The brain could wire itself around to repair the damaged area.
Yeah.
It is amazing what we can do, and yeah, the amount of knowledge that we have, the amount of knowledge that's been lost over the centuries is absolutely over the top. But
I think with the knowledge we have right now, we can definitely reach a Star Trek utopia if we wanted to. I'm not saying self-serving robots and crap like that, but oops, sorry for my French. But anyways, I think if we aren't careful, we're definitely going to head towards the path of the Matrix for sure. Yeah. Maybe not exactly, but that's the path we could head towards.
Now Michael's got something here he wants to talk about.
Yeah, so this is probably the highlight of this in particular episode, where we see that Dr. Corby over here is actually an android, and I've tried for the life of me to find out the term that he used, because the android maker where Captain Kirk was strapped to, he makes a reference to this process where you're basically transferring your soul into a machine. And
conscience transference.
Yeah, that's it.
I've seen a lot of that in Black Mirror. They present the idea a little bit more.
And I can't just help but just appreciate this right here, just because of how good the hand looks when it actually gets exposed. Mm-hmm. Especially for something in the 60s where they were still using pretty much...
No one else was really doing this in the 60s too, so that makes it even 10 times more impressive.
Yeah. And of course, we're going to be careful playing these clips, because the past couple of times YouTube's gotten a little bit angry at us. So that's why I was only showing the picture.
CBS.
Yep.
Not just CBS, but Toho also.
Oh
Toho. Yeah, Toho.
Yeah, they're All right, so let's move it along with this particular episode. Out of 10, quick rating. What would you give it?
I would say a 7.5 out of it, just because.
Yep.
Okay.
It's not as good as some of the other episodes where, believe it or not, Spock, when I pull up my list, my favorite episode of the entire TOS for now is the Enemy Within.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Real quick, can I read this from ActionCom, Michael?
Yes.
He says, nothing ever changes except man. Your technical accomplishments improve a mechanical device and you may double productivity, but improve man and you gain 1,000-fold. I am such a man. If I'm not mistaken, that sounds like it's from Space Seed, ain't it?
I don't know.
That's I think that was something that Dr. Corby actually said.
But I can't remember where.
Oh.
That would make sense for him to say something like that.
Okay, so
I guess it was
I was right.
Union Sing.
Yes, you're gonna love him.
It's
Michael.
a very good quote. But like it dives into what you think. What do you personally believe? Do you think man should be improved, or do you agree with Singh here that maybe if we do improve man, it's beneficial and may be very good for the rest of humanity? Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
And so with that out of the way, let's move on into another very good episode, Dagger of the Mind. And I told Paul or PJ that I think this is another episode just to see the great work of Will Shatner being the theater actor for this in particular episode, just because of how he reacts to the neural neutralizer and how they're plugging all this.
Well, I hate to dip out, boys, but I actually have to hop off right now and get ready on an assignment because it is due today at 11.
Oh, well,
wow.
Go to work.
Yes,
they give us very short due dates. That's the whole. Yeah, I'll see you guys soon though. Thanks for talking to you guys. See you.
Yeah, no problem.
Take care.
So, can you actually
the
go
one
back to
part about that episode that I think people are all amazed at about how good Shatner was?
Yeah.
But look at the supporting cast he had in there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the people he had in there, you look at them,
Yeah.
they're for one. They're underrated.
Yeah.
I would say so as well.
Like even the
Of course,
supporting
that's
cast are
certain
like
little-
acting at the top of their game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
they had some very excellent character actors come in and do stuff with these episodes, and obviously for some of them they come back more than once. But that was always the strength of the show, and I think the strength of that lied within probably within the Desilu production organization, having access to all those people that Roddenberry probably himself wouldn't have had access to. But yeah, this particular episode is what happens when you let it's basically the old days of the old psych wards of the insane asylums having unfettered, unrestricted abilities to study on people who are not right in the head or not right with society, and what happens when somebody escapes.
You could almost call this like the Arkham Asylum of Star Trek.
I would say so as well. But I would say let's just open up with the episode where he just got out, and remind me of his name again.
Dr. Van Gelder.
Dr. Van Gelder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I gotta give this guy some credit just because of just the idea of how hard it must be to depict somebody that's just had their mind broken, but I think that he got it right in this case.
Yes. Especially given the specific way that his mind was broken. When you learn about the neural neutralizer and pretty much the fact that you can implant a thought directly into someone's mind and it becomes of this. What's up, old man?
That guy right there.
Yes.
Look at the expression and everything else on his face.
That is painful.
Yeah.
And that is scary. That's the ability of the actor. Mm-hmm. But he's portraying exactly what happened to him with that machine.
Yes. In fact, ActionCom says he was a method actor. He said he was depressed for a few days. That is dedication.
That is also scary. Method acting is scary.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, we've seen, of course, great examples of method actors. For example, Robert Downey Jr., Daniel Day-Lewis. But we've also seen what happens when method acting, not to go too far off a tangent, when someone... I wasn't going to say Jared Leto. I was going to say Heath Ledger.
Yeah, Heath went off the deep end, and Jared Leto no Jared Leto. No. Bad Jared.
We don't need Tekashi 6ix9ine Joker.
Yeah. But let me think about it for a minute. Can you actually go back to that one picture of the one patient that said that she was a completely different person? Because that's where I really started to realize that something was off. Yes. I forget her name, but she was wearing that really colorful dress.
Lethe was her name.
Lethe. It's right there in like the... Oh, wait, go back. Check the middle right, second picture.
Second from the right.
Not left.
Oh,
so
here
go back. It's right there.
Yeah, she doesn't look like there's anything wrong. No, she's perfectly fine.
Literally just sitting there like...
Yeah, she's like, I was a different person when back then. Part of the treatment process is to let one's past die. Like, yeah, this person's totally normal. Sure.
I can tell you that you're perfectly fine. You feel fine. You will always be fine. There is nothing wrong. You are fine. She's not bad looking, but she ain't fine.
Exactly.
Someone like take that clip and just make that its own thing now, please. Where he was saying that.
That's one thing about that show. They always had great-looking women.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's because they're from a time when they weren't afraid to have men be men and women were... let's see, it was Garrison Keillor that used to say it on his radio show. Where men were men and the women were beautiful. Yes. And the women, as much as they say, oh, they weren't liberated. Yeah, she was as liberated as they got.
Yep. And then the other part about it is, don't hand me that crap. Who controls 60% of all the dollars spent in this country? Women.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I can attest to that. But that's
so can I.
That's a story for another day. The mind, it likes to wander. Right?
Your mind is wandering. You will be okay. You will not remember this episode. You will make a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Funny, I now have a hunkering for a ham sandwich.
Kind of a different turn for different franchises, but I think it's also somewhat similar. Don't be afraid. Yeah. Try to stay very still. It will be over soon.
One of the things that we came up with, which I consider one of the most barbaric medical practices ever, was a lobotomy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of stuff like that before.
And I've been in some very heavy arguments over that subject with people that were responsible for they were about to go and do it to someone. And including the lawyer that was involved. And I went through, I says, do you want a lobotomy done to you? Well, no. Why? Well, I don't need one. Then how do you know they need one?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want somebody to stick something in by your eye, go in and start playing around with your frontal lobe?
No way. Not a chance.
It's just not worth it.
When I was in the service and I was in the medical ward, and we had a guy down on the end. And this guy was just the nicest guy in the world. And then suddenly he'd just completely go off the deep end. And I mean, they had MPs on there and everything else to hold him down. He was throwing them left and right.
Mm-hmm.
They finally got him into a real doctor psychiatrist. Because they said, oh, he's crazy, we gotta. So they got him to a psychiatrist that was an actual full-fledged MD. He said, there's something not right here. So what did he do? He ordered a complete total medical test on the guy.
Yeah.
Everything. When they got done with that, he came back and he said, see this little bottle? It's got some pills in it. You take one of these every day, and you'll never have another episode like that ever again. Why? What is it? It's a mineral that your body is missing. As simple as that, that's causing insanity.
Wow.
Yeah. The mind meld.
Yeah. This is historic because this is the first time, Michael, that we ever see this, and it becomes very, very important in the future of Star Trek as a whole.
Yeah, because I want to say that basically what Spock does is kind of enters Van Gelder's mind to make sense of what's going on and what he's trying to say, because one thing about Van Gelder in this episode is that he can't talk straight. Like something every time he's trying to say the truth is preventing him.
Yeah.
And it's not just that it's preventing him, it's painful to try to say it. And because that pain is so unbearable, he just can't bring
psychological torture of the machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, somebody, I don't know who said it before about when somebody gets drunk, sometimes they tell the real truth. They don't have any inhibitions anymore.
Yeah. There's a reason why Dr. Boyce said
put in your mind to prevent him from being able to tell the truth. Spock was nothing more than a double scotch.
And there's a reason that Dr. Boyce said in The Cage, sometimes a man will tell his bartender things he won't tell his doctor.
Yes. And that is the truth.
That is so very true. This is a classic piece of Star Trek, Star Trek episode, and sets a lot of firsts. And really does show the method acting not only of the overactor, but also of the supporting cast, which is the signature of the show, and it is what makes it great. So if you were to give it a grade, once again, 0 to 10, what would you give it?
I would give this one a 7. I would say it's a pretty solid episode. Mm-hmm. It definitely had a very historic moment, but I guess for some reason I just didn't enjoy it as much as What Little Girls Are Made Of.
Let me ask you this one, Michael. What did you think of how the villain of the episode ultimately died in this episode, where he literally had all the thoughts of his mind drained out, all new activity erased?
Yeah, that really makes me think about it too, because one thing that you have to think about as well is the fact that it wasn't just the fact that all of his thoughts were basically wrung out of his head, but the fact that he was lonely when this happened. And I think Kirk brings up something where he died lonely because he had no company, even though the only company he would have had was his torturer.
Mm-hmm.
A fitting end to an unbefitting human.
Exactly. So that,
I think that's a reasonable grade for this. Not the best, not the worst. That's the one theme that I've seen through this stretch of shows is they're good, but they're not that stellar level. They're like the what's the proper term? They're like the comfort food. They're not the echelon or not the Michelin starred restaurant quality. They're the stuff that you would chow down on every day and that you love it. May not be the best thing for you, but it's down home cooking. You just can't go wrong with it.
I'm going to jump in as the oldest guy in here.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to day one when all this was being done and what was being around, I give it an 8.5. Why? Because it was completely, totally radical, beyond belief.
Yeah.
Kind of da-di-da-di-da. Because you see all the other crap that's out there. And that's affected you. This was the original.
Yes.
Yep, it was a trendsetter.
Copies. And
there was nothing else like it. Nothing else even remotely close to it on TV.
Only thing that came even close to it, now there were 2 other programs. Twilight Zone and Outer Limits.
Yep.
I've not heard of the second one.
You've never heard of the Outer Limits?
Never.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, Paul, we got to have an intervention here. We got to have the intervention.
Of all the things we've never heard of, that one shocks you?
Total control.
Well, considering how much we've gone through Star Trek now, and this being the second time for you, yeah, they're contemporaries of the time, and like Star Trek have had revitalizations throughout time. But this does fall into that psychological aspect and the psychological terror and horrors of being a human and what we do to each other.
Old mind.
Yes.
Okay.
The Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone loved to play on the mental side of things as opposed to the physical side of things.
The Twilight Zone had one where some guy's walking around an empty city. Nobody's there. The whole episode. Finally, at the end, the guy collapses in front of a street sign, and he's pounding this button over and over and goes, walk, don't walk, walk, don't walk. You know what happens? It pulls back. You see this guy is in a cube.
Yeah.
And he's the subject of outer space travel to what will happen to the human mind.
That was the first episode. Yeah, that was the very first episode of that show. That was the very first one from what I remember seeing on the what was it? Hold on, my brain just died. I think it's on, was it on Paramount? Or on Paramount Plus. If you actually go through their listing for that show, since Rod Serling, he did it for CBS all those years ago, that was the very first episode of The Twilight Zone. And yes, it is a mind screw. Ooh! It was brilliance. Nothing else like that. And this is in that same vein of what happens if you push a human to a breaking point. How can you break them?
The episode with Burgess Meredith. He's in there. He's a bookworm. He loves books. The end of the world comes. He gets out. Now there's nobody to nag him about his beautiful books. And what happens? He drops and breaks his glasses.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Oh, that's just cruel.
I don't remember watching the episode, but I remember hearing about it.
Wow.
Yeah, Rod Serling was a master of these type of things.
Let's move on now.
On tune with what we're kind of talking about. Remember the one that the guy is a prisoner on a planet, and they bring him supplies every so often. What did they do? They brought him a robot companion, a female. And over that time, he's bonded with her so much. And they come back and they tell him, well, your sentence is over. You've been reprieved. And he grabs your things. And he's getting all this stuff and he's taking her with him. No, we only got room for you. No, but the guy takes out his laser pistol, blasts her in the face. She's down. The whole face is all evaporated away. And you see just a computer on the inside. And the computer is going on and on. But now there's nobody there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on now to the next episode, which is Miri. And I'm actually going to kick off the conversation on this one because, again, being that this was my second viewing, you'll remember, Brandon, I was not the biggest fan of this episode when we first watched it. The second time around, I actually like it a lot more and do not find the kids as annoying. Granted, perhaps that's because I've now seen And the Children Shall Lead, which the less said about that episode, the better.
Well,
but I actually kind of like this one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just a few things that I have to say about the episode where it definitely felt awkward when they were making these different time jumps in between scenes where when they first find out that they only have a week to live, then suddenly, oh no, the next scene is 3 days later, and then we jump into 2 days later, up into where they only have literal hours left, where I get what they were trying to do, but at the same time, it just felt weird that they did it in that way.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, and I did notice that also myself, but it's one of those things that I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
She looks like, I don't get paid enough to do this.
And she's like, this is my last episode on this show, and this is what I have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really, though?
Yes. You will. Beyond this episode, you will not see Yeoman Rand again until the movies.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad, but...
Yeah.
But...
It's a tough episode, dealing with an end of a civilization due to a contagion that
was made to prolong life.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, that little wrinkle right there, the fact that the contagion was made to increase life and it ended up destroying it, that flew right over my head the first time I saw it, but I understood it this time, and hence that's part of why I enjoyed this episode more.
Yeah, because it's literally what seems to be the overall theme of this sort of series of episodes, it seems, where humans are trying to play God in some way, where twice it's either extending the life of human, in this case, or cheating death, or in this case, controlling how people think by literally planting thoughts in their head.
The big part too is that you had like Michael, and I can't think of his real name, in there, the guy with a really strange looking face. Remember all the stuff he was doing?
Yeah, he was not.
Not him.
he was more the antagonist than the big bully kid.
Yeah.
Arguably.
If anything,
this is the guy with the there, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he had quite a movie career, and unfortunately, he's dead.
Yeah.
But he was weird in there. And that's what he did for the rest of his career, play weird people.
Well, he made a career out of it. You can't fault him for doing what...
You'll remember the way he interacted with everybody and what he said. And it just kind of makes you go, whoa, wait a minute here, folks.
Yeah. Almost like if he was not in this episode at all, the kids might not have been so antagonistic to Kirk and the crew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, too, where I told PJ that at first I thought they were underutilizing the kids in the first place, where we were always getting teased that we were going to see them from when we first heard them, when Spock and the two other red shirts were looking for someplace
How many
to
red
stay. And then they heard all these kids singing and also throwing crap at him.
Mm-hmm. And then the story with the one girl and Miri, and pretty much her coming to terms with what is likely the end of her own life, because she's seen all the other people that grew up to be around her age contract this disease.
Yeah.
And now it's her turn. That's got to do something to you.
Yeah.
Almost like Logan 7.
Mm-hmm.
They all get to that age, they die.
It's another thing, too, because I want to say this is probably... I'm not going to say it's the largest role that Yeoman Rand had, because I would have to give that title to her role in Charlie X. But I would say she had a pretty big role in this episode because of how she was always so concerned with the kids and how they needed medical, food, all these basic things, whereas everyone else is more concerned over the disease.
I gotta disagree with you on one thing, though, Michael. I agree that I don't think that this was her biggest role in this episode. I don't think, though, Charlie X was her biggest role. I think Enemy Within was.
I
might have to rewatch that to see what you mean, but...
Okay, let me put it this way. Her most important role of this show, that is.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that would probably make sense.
And then there's old Dr. McCoy over here. He's like, oh, wait, I think I might have something. But wait. Oh, hold on. Let's try that again. But wait, it might not work. But it might work. It might not. It will work. But if it doesn't, I will die. But you know what? That's okay.
That's precious.
Exactly.
I have to say something about Mr. McCoy. Or Dr. McCoy.
Not cringe.
The actual real actor.
Oh, yeah.
Well, years before, he was in a TV series called The Millionaire. And in there, he was a scientist. He was trying to work on something, but his fiancée or whatever wife wanted to go to this big party upstairs. And he'd been given $1 million by John Bergs for Tipton. Now he had all the money he needed to do his research work. But in there, she's going to drag him upstairs. He turns around, he looks at her, and he says, I'm a scientist, not a socialite. And I often wondered if that line carried him all the way on into the series here.
I don't know, makes sense. But then again, there's a lot. We haven't gotten there yet, Michael, but you're going to see a lot of, I'm a doctor, not a insert other occupation here.
Let's say that what you described almost sounded like Indecent Proposal. Very Indecent Proposal-esque.
Shoot.
Yeah. And I'm honestly just cringing at the fact that the guy, can you bring up the picture again? And he's wearing a Master Sergeant rank. And then right below it, he's wearing a sergeant rank upside down. Like, just why?
Oh, him?
Yeah, him.
Oh. Yeah, sometimes you just can't keep things straight.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I
mean, a lot of hippies
it just makes me
down.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me cringe because there's always going to be that one vein that pops out of my forehead when I see something like that, just not squared away.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's just going to get worse the older you get.
That's part of the environment of when this was made.
Yeah.
And the hippie stuff, all the stuff with degrading and embarrassing the military in any way they can. Every guy that came home from Vietnam was called a baby killer. How many babies did you kill over there? And we had a chip on our shoulder. Oh, yeah, about the size of a sequoia.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we did corrective therapy on a lot of those individuals back then. Myself included, thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
But, there, it's actually being worn correctly.
Yeah, it's correct.
Lockers are in the bottom.
But I don't know. It just kind of irks me for some reason. But
drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so this one, it's one that I've seen more than 4 times. So this is one that I can go back to without too much hesitation. The kids, they don't annoy me as bad because they're not there for that long. But overall, this goes once again. It's the overarching theme that we're seeing in the production order is what happens when you play God and it goes wrong. What happens if you try to create like God and it goes wrong? And what if you try to live forever like God and it goes wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and that's really what's
considering that Roddenberry was very atheistic in a lot of ways. It's amazing how many themes revolving around the Almighty have shown up in these episodes, and that's just the perfection of the writing. They could do it and they got away with it and made it to where we can talk about it today and still explore these themes and have it still be perfectly relevant and even more relevant now than it was back then.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what year this was in, so if I'm blowing your timeline, I'm sorry. But remember when Spock and Kirk went to a planet that was Roman?
Oh
yes. Bread and circuses.
That's a late season 2 episode.
Yep, late season 2.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring this up because I wasn't sure where. But that was one that had the contrary impact right between your eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
And we stay here to see how it turns out.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's just a testament to the writing of the time and just how much. I would probably say they had more talent back then. I do believe that to be the case, especially with Western writing the way it is now. But the execution of it was vastly superior. Even if we had equivalent level writing right now, we're definitely not getting the execution. So, personally, I give this episode an 8.
Yeah, I might have ranked this. If I would have to go back and watch our original ranking of like our 5 favorite and least favorite episodes, Brandon.
Yeah.
But this is now, if this was on my least favorite episodes list, it's no longer there.
Well, that's good.
And I would give this, I would give this a 7.5.
I think that's a reasonable assessment. What about you? What about you, Michael?
I would say that personally I would give this a 7 because even though it's clear about the themes of trying to play God or trying to extend life, I thought that it was trying to tell me something else, where it's supposed to be about, well, what happens when you don't accept reality for what it is? Because one thing that the children never really quite got was the fact that they are eventually going to grow up and they themselves are going to get this disease, where they were more concerned with somebody playing teacher or somebody getting smacked upside the head with a wrench because they were mean. But I don't know, I guess at the time, as I said, for Mudd's women, just the overall theme wasn't quite as clear. the story itself was solid, but the overall message was not at first clear. So I would give it a 7.
I can see that. What about you, old man? What would you give this
I'm
episode?
going to give it an 8 for several reasons. One, some unbelievable acting from a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they carried the intensity of it. In the beginning, with the chanting of the kids coming out, no, there's so much that I think is missed that I elevated up to that, including Michael, and I wish the hell I could remember his last. Sorry, Freudian slip there. I wish I could remember the guy's last name, but him and, of course, the lady's last episode. She did some real work in there.
She did. The one scene where she's like, Captain, the whole time I've been on the ship, I've wanted you to look at my legs. And then tearfully she says, Captain, look at my legs, as she shows him the blotches that are now there.
Yeah.
Also, a quick trivia fact about this episode, Michael. Do you see the two little girls that are highlighted in this picture? The one on the left and then the one that Kirk is holding on the right.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Those are William Shatner's real-life daughters.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was Take Your Daughter to Work Day.
Yeah. I really love it when they do that. When actors do that.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that one.
No, I didn't know that either, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I need to make a special request. Since my time is getting close to being limited, can we jump to Court Martial? Because out of all these, this is by far my favorite episode, by far.
Sure, we can do that.
Yes. Court Martial. So, Michael, what did you think? Well, go ahead and start off with this episode. Go ahead.
And real quick, before you do, Michael, I am especially interested to hear what you have to say about the court-martial itself, especially as someone that, of course, is currently serving. None of this is reflected of the Department of Defense.
As if we can't make that clear enough, by the way. So, I will say this. This is probably the first time I ever saw what I guess you would call the Class A's. Is that correct, BJ?
Dress uniform.
Pretty much. Their dress uniform. And I was trying to look at all the different details that they got right. And one thing I found interesting is that even though these ribbon part things here, they make all these different kinds of shapes. Where one has a star, one of them has like a hexagon, octagon, and I don't know, even though I think it's weird, I think it's still good.
Yeah, my guess is that they would serve the same purpose as your ribbon rack that you would wear right here.
Yes.
They just have a different design.
Yeah, which I don't have a problem with because I'm willing to accept that because
I, on the other hand, just to let you know, I had 3 up and 2 down. I worked for a living. No act of Congress could ever make me an officer or a gentleman. And in that, I saw these different things, medals hanging. I remember when I had to actually go to a formal function.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it because it put me in dress blues. Okay, here's some stinking little Army sergeant getting all into dress blues. Basically, it was as Civil War officers in enlisted man uniform.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wear a ribbon bar. I had to wear the ribbons themselves. The entire damn set of medals I had hanging on me. And it just... It rubbed me the wrong way like you can't believe, but I did it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted my damn ribbon bar back with nice uniform consistency across, everything the same, just little different colors telling you, oh, this is Vietnam, oh, this is your good conduct medal. Oh, wait a minute, that's where your good conduct used to be. They took it away from you because, never mind, it's another story.
Yeah. And real quick, old man, I actually have something to show you since you brought up dress uniforms. I know you mentioned dress blues, and this is not dress blues, but I still, of course, have my dressed whites from when I was in the Navy. And by the way, that was my ribbon rack when I got out.
Right now, I just only have my Army service ribbon and my National
That was my
Defense
rank.
ribbon.
Petty Officer 3rd Class.
Wow. Good job, Paul.
Thank you.
Very nice. Yes, this episode, it really goes to show the militaristic side of Starfleet. Even though at the time they weren't technically fully at war, they had rough relationships with the Klingons, and technically Starfleet is an exploration organization. It's still the military, whether or not they want to admit it or not. It is, and this goes to show what happens when something goes wrong. Now, as it was put in the episode, this is the first time that a Starfleet captain has had something go this foobar this badly, and they were willing to, bust him completely for the good of the service. Always for the good of the service, for the good of this, for the good of that. And I'm so glad that they did this episode the way they did. It is an excellent courtroom drama. It has excellent character actors, great method acting for a lawyer, and it really hits home the whole idea of what is the law. Is the law something that is synthesized into a computer, or is it something that is supposed to be living and breathing, and something that we should fight for full equality under the law? And you get Commodore Stone. Back then in TV, didn't see a whole ton of black actors at the time, but Commodore Stone was brilliant. He was played brilliantly. He may have been the a-hole, but he wasn't being the a-hole because he was an a-hole. He was being the a-hole because he had to be the a-hole. He's presented with evidence showing that a Starfleet captain potentially murdered a man that he had a run-in with years ago, even though, as far as Kirk knew, there was no problem between him and what's his name? I can't remember his name. And Finney carried that for years. For forever.
And I'm going to make a bold claim here, Brandon.
Chess.
I think this is the best courtroom episode of Star Trek ever, and I say that
absolutely.
Having seen Measure of a Man.
Oh, absolutely. This is leaps and bounds better than even what they were doing in TNG. And as McCoy said, he gets that look. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Really? Yes, Doctor. You're up here playing chess when they're about to literally string up the captain, and you're not doing a thing to lift your finger. I just won my 4th game. What?
That should,
that should not happen.
Let's address what ActionCom says here. This episode also addressed a future concern.
Yes.
Mistakes.
Oh yes, absolutely. Can you forge a computer record? Can you falsify something that is supposed to be unfalsifiable?
And in this episode, it's shown yes.
Jedi could erase those files.
Yes, perfect.
And how?
And let's just face it.
Because
we have to face something as men. Damn, Captain Kirk looks great in that uniform. He is just he is the epitome of cool, calm, collected, and absolutely on top of his game. And then I like the fact that his lawyer says, no, continue playing the record. Let's just see. And it just goes back to the whole idea behind the original series, behind what Roddenberry wanted for Kirk. Kirk was the captain of captains. He wasn't just a captain. He was the captain.
Yeah.
And anybody
so good
knows what a court-martial looks like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You got 3 of them, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
One where it's slap on the wrist and a little jail time. The other one is slap on the wrist, prison for the rest of your life, and execution.
The wrong type of slap and tickle.
So when
and
you're
of course, Finney's kid back there in the corner.
When you look at a summary and general court-martial, we're looking at what? We're looking at the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And it came down very, very much like a real court-martial.
Yeah.
Like a drum head almost.
Yes. In a way it was a drum head, because as they had mentioned, and as Commodore Stone had mentioned, up to that point they've never done that. They've never had to do that to a captain, because nothing of this sort has come up prior. And yes, Samuel T. Cogley, an old school lawyer who prefers to use his mind and not lean on computers as a crutch, absolutely. And I just might say that Kirk has a pretty good taste in his women from Starfleet itself. Now, I'm not going to say anything about the aliens that he liked to woohoo with, but yeah, that's just, this is just, the 60s, the up hairstyle, the shorter up hairstyle.
When even short hair looked good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say so.
And of course, she told him that she will, as much as she loves him and as much as she wants him, she told him right up front, I will do everything within my power to bust you, because that's my job. Now, if you want to talk about female empowerment, there she sits.
Yep.
Yes.
And look at the year.
1966.
Mm-hmm.
Rather revolutionary, isn't it?
Yep, that it is. And of course,
Yeah,
Shatner's just like, I'm just sitting here, just minding my business.
Yeah.
Because I've got to.
Yeah.
Yes, we know you got to.
I do want to talk about one thing that I want to say is probably the smartest solution that Spock, McCoy, and Jim even thought of doing, and that is taking the court-martial onto the Enterprise and basically showing them the signals of each heartbeat.
Yes.
And turning them off one by one. Well, in the sense that the machine was going to stop registering certain heartbeats. Like, I want to say that's probably the smartest thing, because you can't hide a heartbeat.
Well, as Cogley put it, the one thing that was lacking in the trial was Kirk being able to face his accuser. Really, when you think about it, what did they present? The video log of the Enterprise. Technically, it was the Enterprise that was the accuser, that had its records falsified.
But
and
then again,
once they got up there, once Spock came in and said, look, the most that I should be able to do is draw with the computer. I should not be able to beat it. If I can beat this, then something is severely wrong. And then, of course, it goes into the exposition, well, who could do that? Kirk, Spock, Finney. There you go. Get up there, face your accuser, cut out the audio, or cut out the audio that
of the heartbeats.
For the heartbeats, and get everybody else off the ship except just the bridge crew. And who's left? Finney.
Yeah.
And we see literally just a broken shell of a man by the time that Kirk catches up to him, where that hatred literally drove him insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where he was willing to not just kill Kirk out of revenge, but in order to make sure that Kirk was dead, kill many, many other innocent people too, at least, though Finney says they're not innocent because they played party to the fact that I was held back in my career.
Yeah.
Well, and he said he wanted to kill. He wanted to kill Kirk's ultimate love, which is the Enterprise.
Yeah.
He tried and he failed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finney went kamikaze. Action Com says.
So, how shall we rate this episode? If we don't have anything else.
For me, this is a 10 out of 10. Easy 10 out of 10.
I'm gonna have to go with a 9.
Okay.
All these
man,
make him look completely insane.
I'm going to agree with you, a 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Look, first of all, a military court-martial is probably one of the most fairest court-martials you're ever going to get. Unless it's a political one. But if it's a straight-out regular one, you're going to get a pretty damn fair court-martial.
Yeah.
And I've known more people who walked out of one of them than got sentenced by one.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, the people that are involved in that are there for a reason. They want to get to the truth. To hell with everything else. That's where they're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a guy that was looking at 9 counts of a capital nature. Yeah. They got him in the court-martial. Everything was stacked against him. However, the defense attorney stepped up and said, General Darida, I won't mention his name because he's well known.
Okay.
In World War II, you were presented with the same situation. What did you do? Bang, boom, that was it. He was out of there. Why? Because the counts of homicide were behind enemy lines with prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
To get out of there, the only way they could do it was without the prisoners.
Yeah. And real quick, Action Com saying, good thing Starfleet doesn't have a Fort Hood.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, old man. I got to do it to you.
Language, and for gosh sake, watch your language.
I apologize.
All right.
Yeah, this is classic. This is classic Star Trek. Up one way, down the other, including the fight with the replacement actors that you can plainly see are replacement actors, and then and
of course, Kirk rips his shirt open because always he does.
And you people have never heard of video editing.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, one of the reasons, I don't know if I told you this, Michael, but one of the reasons that Kirk rips his shirt so much in those fight scenes is because those uniforms are so tight on them.
Yeah. Which makes sense. Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. This is a great episode. For me, it's also 9.5, 10 easily. It's one of the 5 best.
Women, more cat fights.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's
Dirty
true.
old man.
A cat fight would have been real good. Would have been really good in this, and of course the overacting. But you just can't go wrong with the overacting. It was the era of the overacting.
Like, yeah, it just gets better with the overacting, I would say, just because of how you can laugh at it, especially after yet again mentioning this episode, the naked time. You gotta appreciate the overacting.
Oh yes,
absolutely. So yeah, that's this is where I've got to hop off, gentlemen. I appreciate the time, and of course, talking about real Star Trek, the fun Star Trek,
yes.
and the time before high definition TV. And you know what? This really was very forethought on the part of Desilu Productions and in general NBC. Most of their stuff was shot on 35 millimeter. So it was much easier when the tech finally became available for remastering and then for rescanning for either high def transfers or 4K transfers, that it could be done. Whereas if you look at if you look at the Next Generation, it was not shot on film. It was shot on video cassette. And the process for restoring it was much more difficult, and it has less even results compared to the original series. And that's the same problem that we've run into with DS9, and also the same thing with Voyager, not shot on 35. And with a lot of the older television series, you don't see they could do it to DVD because it was fairly close to a straight transfer, nothing major. But anything else from ABC or from CBS at that same era, it does not have that same look to it. It doesn't have that same feel. They felt like television. NBC had the feel of a Cineplex, precisely because of being shot on 35.
Yeah.
Well, that in the 80s, they just completely obliterated everything else that came out, and that was Brandon Tartikoff's doing. You know, you get Miami Vice and Knight Rider and all that other cool stuff. But it's interesting considering that CBS owns it now, but Paramount, when it was its own separate studio thing, they worked with everybody. And there was a lot of stuff that NBC aired that is actually Paramount produced. Cheers is one of those examples.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but that was, NBC, even say what you want to say about their news organizations being trash for forever, which it's true. Yeah. Their entertainment side, at least, they were the first ones to go color. They were the first ones to do the sci-fi stuff with Star Trek. They were, CBS may have had Rod Serling do, or they were the ones that broadcast the Twilight Zone, and I don't recall who did the Outer Limits, but I want to say it was also CBS. NBC had their programmers always had a little more forethought into everything. So, yeah, there's a reason why there's a reason why their stuff is more remembered, and why their stuff is easier to find out there, as opposed to some of the older shows from CBS or ABC. If you start looking for classic TV series to go and purchase, you'll find more NBC series or stuff that aired on NBC versus stuff that was either produced or aired on CBS or ABC. Now, Fox, being a newer, the very late 80s, early 90s, it doesn't count. But for the original three, NBC was the place to be. Plus, they had the Dean Martin roast. You just can't go wrong with Dean Martin roasting everybody. You want to talk about classic... stuff that you can't say or show on TV anymore. It's extremely tame compared to what Comedy Central's roasts have turned into. But they will air the Comedy Central roasts. They will never air on traditional TV again any of the stuff from Dean Martin. And why? Because you have Dean and his friends of all stripes of life roasting the holy crap out of each other without swearing.
Yeah.
And man, some of the jabs that they took at each other was just fantastic. It makes Dr. McCoy go like, oh. It makes Dr. McCoy go like, what the hey? Yes, really? Oh yeah. You ever get a chance? Yeah, if you ever get a chance, do some research on what's easier to find and what's been easier to remaster, and it's because of the 35mm film.
All right. Well, thank you, Brandon, for joining us.
You betcha. You all have a great night, old man. Good to see you, and good to be on stream with you, good sir. And
good to see you. Glad to be here with you.
Well, thank you so very much. And yeah, talk about the Conscience of the King. Ooh, getting into the Shakespeare side, and then the Galileo 7.
Yes.
Such good episodes, but I gotta go.
That's all right. Compared to the other 4 episodes we've talked about, which have spawned some very existential debates, these are pretty straightforward. So starting with Conscience of the King, this one's pretty much a murder mystery. Basically figuring out whether the play actor Anton Caridian actually is the murderer, Kodos the Executioner.
Yeah, so, I just want to start off by saying that when it comes to Star Trek, playing with these original and classic ideas, like the idea of split personalities or a murder mystery like this, they always find some way to twist it on its head, where we eventually do find out who the killer is, and we'll get into that later. But we also get into this one interesting idea that is probably what was going on for half the episode anyways, is just the idea of this guy is possibly responsible for pretty much being like Thanos, wiping out half the population of a certain planet because of the supplies. He's not being there on time. And yet, there's still some people that think that he probably isn't the guy because, for one thing, his body was burned beyond recognition, as well as he might have changed his ways given the years that he may or may not have been alive. And that's very interesting for Spock and Kirk to talk about, because obviously Kirk wanted to end him, but Spock just told him it's just illogical to do this.
Mm-hmm. And we got to talk about something else, Michael. Who should make a return in this episode? But have no fear, Lieutenant Kevin Riley's here.
Yeah.
Although he's comparatively sane in this episode.
And his only mistake in this case is that he was not born an Irishman.
And he drank strange-looking milk.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like that. Well, at first I did not actually realize it because I was just focused on getting these episodes done for the most part.
Yeah.
This is actually where things get really interesting, because what happens when you do let those emotions kind of take over? Where Kirk very well could do it at any point in time, and I'm not going to say he wouldn't get in trouble, but I would say it wouldn't be as much of a deal, say, if a crewman then didn't.
That is true.
Oh yeah, Action Com brings up something.
Says they left him alone in engineering again. That is true. Although this time, oh, by the way, hello to Dave Bob. Thank you for joining. He's saying the original series is Star Trek. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. But yeah, this time it's funny. Last time he was in engineering alone, he's singing over the intercom to the whole ship. This time he's alone in engineering and someone's singing over the intercom to him. And if we've not said it already, Nichelle Nichols had an absolutely beautiful singing voice.
Yeah, I would agree.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just find the idea of kind of just waiting to see what happens, the whole hurry up and wait, is interesting, because I, for one thing, hate the whole hurry up and wait, where you have everything ready to go and all you're waiting to do is receive instructions.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I would say it's important because all Kirk was really acting on, and of course Riley was acting on, was just pure emotion. They weren't really thinking about what they were doing other than this guy killed so many people, including my family.
True.
Yep. Action Com says, do you play God? Carry his head through the corridors in triumph. That won't bring back the Jim. Dead Jim, though. They said no, but it may rest easier. Although I gotta ask Action Com, what does God need with a starship?
Michael, do you realize what you've done?
Yes.
You not only do I have to play this clip, but you've probably summoned Phil McCracken to us.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship? I said, what does God need with a starship?
Jim, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
You'll understand more about that when we get to that movie.
Yeah, and that's the motion picture, right?
No, that's Star Trek V.
Okay.
Yeah, motion picture looks nothing like any of the movies that come after it.
Yeah.
Bill's
made a call
here.
Yeah.
But when you get to that point in the movie, before he asks that question, you'll wonder why the hell he hasn't asked it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think of the twist in this episode as well, where it's not the gentleman that they all thought it was, but rather his daughter?
That was a very interesting twist, and credit to that actress for being able to act that out, because I could 100% see someone who is so obsessed with maintaining their father's image that they would kill people to basically silence them.
Yeah.
And of course, her being completely obsessed with the theater would sort of mix with that obsession with keeping their father's name innocent, and thus drive her crazy.
Yeah.
And then add on to that, when she meant to shoot Kirk, but her father jumped in the way, and she shot her father, and that just sends her into an absolute meltdown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where it's a mixture of cries and laughter, but I can honestly say I heard more laughter.
Yeah.
Just because of how she just went off the rails.
You know what it reminds me of now that I think about it, Michael? Did you ever see the animated DC movie Flashpoint?
Yes.
Remember? Okay,
that was such a good movie.
All right. So, for some context, old man, this is an alternate universe story for DC Comics where the Flash goes back in time to prevent his mother from dying, but in doing so completely changes the timeline to where now, and this is the part that's important, Bruce Wayne is no longer Batman. Thomas Wayne is Batman, because in this alternate timeline, Thomas and Martha Wayne survive, and Bruce dies from that gunman. And while Thomas becomes Batman, Martha becomes the Joker. And in that particular scene, all we see is she's crying over her son, and she has her son's blood on her hand, and she puts her hand up on her mouth, and as her cries turn to laughter, you see a crudely painted smile on her face.
Yeah, and this was all while Thomas Wayne was beating Joe Chill to death, and in this case, he's not the Batman that we know.
Yeah, he's a Batman that openly uses guns.
Yeah, where he nearly cut off what I think was Harleen Quinzel's tongue, who is actually adopting the alias of Yo-Yo in that movie.
But yeah, Dave Bob, he also saw it, and he didn't like it. That's okay. Admittedly, it wasn't my bag either, because I like seeing my heroes be heroes as they were originally intended. I don't like this is an evil version of this. But that's a whole other side rant.
Yeah, but I would also say that for this, it just proves that, I don't know, sometimes you just got to be the bigger person, because kind of like the Karate Kid 2, it actually reminds me of the one guy that was the nephew of
Chosen.
Mr. Miyagi. Yeah, Chosen, who is the nephew of Mr. Miyagi. He's a former best friend, and that was
Sato.
Where, sure, he only had his beef with Daniel for the most part, but that really just came from Sato's absolute hate for Mr. Miyagi.
Which, side note, Michael, you really need to watch Cobra Kai, because in season 3 they bring Chosen back and do something really cool with him.
I might do that, because I did actually just get done with Stranger Things, which may or may not be something I will record in a video, by the way.
Let me know when you do. I'll get caught up.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to do an overall review of it, but yeah, I'll let you know.
All right.
So,
but anyways, back to this episode, though. Yeah, the way it ended was absolutely perfect, where, yeah, it pretty much is confirmed that Caridian was indeed Kodos, but he was making a legitimate effort to put his past behind him and turn over a new leaf in the form of an acting career, and actually become someone that people could love and respect and admire as an actor.
Yes.
But his daughter just couldn't let his past go out of fear that his past may come back one day to haunt him, which it did. And so she has to silence the people that would be perceived as a threat.
Yeah. And I would say for that reason, I would give this episode a 9 as well.
I would agree also 9 out of 10.
Remembering the series now that we've started talking about it, I got to fall in line with you guys. It was an intense episode that had so much in it.
Mm-hmm.
The complexity of it. And I think what most people don't understand is family, love, and loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's forward here.
Dave Bob saying she was crazy as a bedbug, but I'll take her. I don't blame you. She was a beautiful woman.
Oh, she was hot, definitely.
Oh, yes.
She's a 10, but she went insane because of her father.
Yeah, that could be a deal breaker for some. But if you can look past that, more power to you.
Enough.
You're aware of that trend, by the way, PJ, right?
Oh, yes, I'm very aware.
Yeah. So anyways, last episode for tonight is
Galileo 7. And this one, the most is an examination of basically how Spock goes about handling a crisis.
Yeah. And I don't know, I really like this episode because of the amount of wit that Spock has when it comes to how he uses his logic.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's very sharp in the way that he talks, as well as I want to say this is probably the first time I've ever heard him sound remotely frustrated.
Right.
Not necessarily angry, because he's been able to suppress his emotions, but just frustrated and annoyed with the idea of, well, we can't to sacrifice 6 lives to save 1. Miri's so adamant about doing what's going to get the most amount of people back home.
Yeah, because he simply cannot fathom the idea of say, for example, holding a funeral service for the 2 crewmen that ended up dying on this trip. His brain is hardwired to only focus on the task at hand and the logical next step to achieve said task.
Yeah,
he can't think of the human factor right now.
Yeah, I want to say that this.
Mm-hmm.
As I recall, I could be wrong, but I think a few people made shots at him for his logic.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Like, I know McCoy definitely did, as well as Mr. Doma.
Yeah. ActionCom, however, points out that he says this will begin an arc for Spock, that logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end-all, be-all. And he also points out, he also assumes that the savages would use logic when, frankly, that's illogical to expect that to begin with.
Yeah, because of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're only focused on what's right in front of their face, where if they think, oh, I'm in danger, then they're going to do something. They're not thinking about, oh, am I really in danger? Let me think about that real quick.
Mm-hmm. He also, ActionCom also says he thinks demonstrations of power would be enough, which perhaps it would be for someone like you or me.
Yeah.
But for someone that's literally operating on only a survival instinct, they see a show of force, they're going to answer back.
Yeah.
And Dave Bob's saying Spock finds out that all is not as it seems.
It's now a GI in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Your enemy puts forth a force on you that should make you cave in, but you don't. And when it's all over, it goes the other way.
Yeah.
And throughout history, there have been stories of exactly that. All the way back in history to the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, up through history into, the American Civil War. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, it is a case of where you can only push so far before the people on the other side say, excuse me, but it's my turn to perform corrective therapeutic mayhem.
That is true. You know, there's a reason. There's a reason why the saying "poke the bear" is a thing.
Yeah.
He says, "I'm thinking of the scene where Spock has his crew fire phasers in the air, thinking the tribe would get the message, but they send a message right back."
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I also find it interesting that they have a debate on what to do with their phasers, because I think Scotty had an idea where he could somehow rework the phasers to become something of a power source. But then someone brings up that the phasers are essential for their defense, so what do you do there? Do you risk lowering your defenses so you can escape? Or do you risk being able to escape in order to defend yourself?
Well, in that particular situation, they do manage... Oh, go ahead.
The whole point of this is to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an easy one to make. And over the years, I can tell you, a lot of people have had different opinions on that one. As I'm sure you guys are too.
Oh, yeah. Although, in this particular scenario, they do come up with a pretty ingenious way to defend themselves from those giants by basically charging the outer hull of the shuttle and electrocuting them.
Yeah. Because I would say that's one thing that they definitely had an advantage of, because I don't know. You don't, never mind. Forget I said anything.
Saying this episode was based on a movie starring Lucille Ball called Five Came Back. It's about a plane crash in the Amazon. Yeah, well, I will definitely check that out. And Dave Bob saying Roddenberry has a sense of the now because he was a product of his time. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And if you remember, I think he had a uniform on.
I believe he did, actually. So
you have a different way of thinking at things when you're in a uniform and somebody's shooting at you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the first time you're laying there on the ground or standing in the field or whatever, and you hear something like an angry bumblebee goes by your ear, you develop something that is called the pucker factor.
Yep, I'm aware of that.
And believe me, your whole concept of what you're there for is a 180-degree shift from what was assumed to be da-di-da-di-da, holy criminies, I can get killed. You know the biggest mistake anybody can make?
What's that?
Thinking they want to get out of their alive. Because that's when people make a mistake and they get killed.
I believe that 100%.
If you figure you're going to die, you got nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing. Go for it, baby.
Yeah, just go for it. All right.
Now, of course, there's stuff going on the Enterprise itself while all this is going on, where Kirk is trying to look for everyone that's lost on Taurus 2, and he's under a time limit by this one governor character, which Brandon, before he left,
Commissioner.
Yeah. He says the governor of Galileo 7 was annoying AF. Yes, he was. Although I will say this, he is not as annoying as the ambassador that we will be seeing in A Taste of Armageddon. That guy was just a straight wacko. Yes. So, anyways, the real meat and potatoes is what's going on with Spock. And I like how over the progression of the episode, he's following purely everything logical, but he keeps coming up short only by following logic. Specifically with how he dealt with the tribe, he just cannot comprehend, like I said earlier, that they would not listen to logic and be scared off by a show of force. And that leads ultimately to the end of the episode after the shuttle has lifted off and has basically established a very, very shaky orbit, realizing that the Enterprise has kind of already left them. He makes what many consider a very emotional call and dumps all of their fuel to make it burn up in the atmosphere as if they were signaling a flare. Action Comm puts it best, an act of desperation. So what did you think of that, Michael?
Well, I would say that probably the highlight of it all was the fact that Galileo 7 was still in the atmosphere, but they were burning up.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they only had so little time to be called by the Enterprise.
And you were saying, old man?
Thank you, Scotty.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scotty.
Thank you, Scotty.
And then I like how in the very end, Kirk and McCoy are grilling Spock saying, you're not going to admit that for the first time in your life, you committed a purely emotional decision. And he's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah, and everyone's kind of laughing, and yet Spock is just like...
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, Michael, this ultimately will lead to the Wrath of Khan, where, again, I will not say what happens, but if you thought that Spock was heroic in, what was it, Balance of Terror, and he made an emotional response here, what he does in that movie tops all of that.
It worked.
And better late than never, Phil.
It works.
Phil McCracken saying, watch it, old man. Paul abuses the elderly. All I said was I think Yngwie Malmsteen's one of the best guitarists in the world.
Yeah.
I don't see what's so wrong with that.
By the way, Phil, I totally summoned you with that one clip that I'm not going to mention explicitly. Otherwise, PJ will be...
I got another one from that movie, Michael. I don't think you've seen this one.
I know this ship like the back of my hand.
With a little bit of Jim Ross added there too.
Yes.
You may feel that somebody else is the best guitarist in the world.
Yeah.
Hold firm, and I will never surrender it to a guy by the name of Roy Clark.
Oh, 100%. 100% he's up there.
Oh, somebody's falling asleep over there. We're bored.
Well, we both did work, and we both have work early in the morning. So we are kind of getting to the close of this. But overall, Galileo 7, Michael, what are you ranking this one?
I'm giving this an 8. And while you give out your rankings, it is time for the tier list, so I'm going to go ahead and put that up.
Okay. I'm giving this one an 8 also. It was one of many different character examinations of Spock, and it was a really well-told one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, old man? What are you ranking this one?
With you guys on that one.
Okay.
Really,
fair enough.
I went through it from everything that's happened, and I saw that thing several times. And yeah, my first viewing of it, I was really PO'd at Spock. I wanted thump.
Bunk, bunk on the head. Bunk, bunk.
Yeah.
No. All right. So here's what I've got here.
I really mellowed.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And real quick, while you get that ready, Phil saying, we need Skyrim. I think I can spare It's gonna have to be a shorter stream, but I'll do some Skyrim for you.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I've got here in the D tier. I'm only using the D tier just as a placeholder as I sort them out, just because I try to get all my stuff organized before, so I won't have to go digging for them. So none of these are in D tier. I'm just using D tier as something of a placeholder.
Okay.
So going in order from what little girls are made of, I'm going to put this on the A tier, right in between The Naked Time and Where No Man Has Gone Before.
That's high praise.
Yeah.
And then going into, I think it's Dagger of the Mind next. It is going to be, I'm going to put it just below The Cage.
Okay. Real quick, Dave Bob's saying, I started watching this series in 1966. I can't be separated from then.
Yeah.
I didn't have that because I was dodging mud, muck, and what have you. So I didn't get it until after it was actually over. Well, I did see a few episodes when I was in country, but not many. So I know what you're talking about there. I really do.
All right, so where are you ranking Miri, Mike?
I would say Miri is actually going to be in B tier, but it's going above Mud's Women. Because I think that this one, compared to Mud's Women, had a much more enjoyable show. And it had much higher stakes, which made it just the more enjoyable. Yeah, sure, the children were annoying, and also the overarching theme wasn't really as clear, but I would say it was just a little bit more enjoyable than Mud's Women.
Okay, fair enough.
And then for Conscience of the King, I would say I'm going to put this in S tier, but I can't decide if I want to put it before or after Balance of Terror, so I'm going to put it before just to say that it's S tier for now.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it any higher than that because I think Balance of Terror is a vastly, as good as Conscience of the King is, Balance of Terror is a vastly better episode.
Yes. Now, when it comes to that, I'm actually going to put Court Martial right next to it over here, because I would say it's kind of like Corbomite Maneuver, Balance of Terror, except we get to see probably the third side of this, where we get to see official business being conducted, albeit it's a court-martial, and nobody likes being court-martialed, so...
Of course.
I wonder why.
But just to be able to see that sort of thing take place was just incredible. And then for Galileo 7, I'm going to put this also at A tier, but I'm going to put it right here. Just because I think that the overall story was enjoyable, but I think I liked all the other episodes over here better. But that's just me personally. I thought it was pretty straightforward, and I thought it was good. But I just think that there were a lot of these episodes over here that were just better.
Okay.
The only thing I think I have a problem with was the way you rank Mud's Women. The whole episode was based on what? What one man wants to see and what they need. The women at the end provided what they really needed. And they were incredibly beautiful without the drug. They knew
I get what you're saying.
For survival. And that was the ultimate. Having a woman that can satisfy everything that you need to have. And the impact of it, wake up, realize, look at the woman you got. You want this little fluffy thing, or do you want the down-to-earth real woman that may not be a 9, may not be an 8, but believe me, in your life she'll be a 10.
That is a good point.
Yeah. So I guess with that note, I believe, unless we have any other alibis or any other comments.
Well, I will mention that, as I said, Phil, there will be a relatively shorter, but there will be a Skyrim stream tonight, and it will for sure be on Fandomology Gaming Live. In fact, I'm going to grab a fresh link for that and put it in the chat. If you guys are not aware, we now have a gaming channel specifically for gaming streams because I felt like we were kind of putting a little bit too many gaming streams, honestly, too many streams in general, on this channel. So this is to alleviate that. So if you are not subscribed to Fandomology Gaming Live, here is the link. Make sure that you are. Real quick, Dave Bob also mentioning, and I loved watching Spock become a Vulcan, as in Leonard Nimoy learning more and more how to portray a Vulcan in the first few episodes. Yes, that was great.
Yeah.
And I forget, old man, remind me, do you have your own channel?
Oh, heck no. I'm just
okay.
a friend.
Okay. Well, anyways, though, I'll say this, though. Subscribe also to Baron Orman Tag, because old man, if you liked what you heard, he is a regular over there.
Yeah. I hang around there.
Yes.
And
so,
Michael, I apologize for being the south end of a northbound horse for you. I am just generally a pain in the rear end.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, this was a very enjoyable conversation.
Yeah. Can you drop his YouTube link real quick, PJ? Because
yeah. I'll grab a Baron Orman Tag.
Yeah. I kid you not, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea how much fun it is to be with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And how honored I am to be allowed to be in.
Well, hey, we are happy to have you, man. More than happy.
I can imagine the senile old shit like me. Sorry, fart like
it's
me.
Okay.
Going to be allowed into some of these places.
Well,
right, that's the guy.
Yep, that is the guy where you can mostly find old man hanging around with our friend Baron Orman Tag. As I said before, unfortunately, he's feeling pretty under the weather right now with COVID-19. So we wish him by far a speedy recovery.
And of course, I hang around to pick on you and a few other people out there too that actually tolerate me.
Well, like I said, I brought you on here because, like I said, given that you, of course, are the oldest among us here that were on the panel tonight, and you have your own unique take on what we've been talking about, different than anything I certainly, or Michael, or heck, even Brandon and Spock might have. So pretty much whatever unique that you can bring to the table is what we're looking for on this channel.
I am pretty close to being your grandfather's age.
And real quick, I'll mention Dave Bob also. Dave Bob is another guy that doesn't have a channel, but he likes to show up with Loki's Mornings of Mischief on Fridays. So make sure you're subscribed to Stone Loki also.
Dave Bob is a good guy.
Yes, he is. I actually met him in Nashville.
And of course, Phil McCracken.
I mean, what he? Okay, tell you what. I'll put it this way, and I mean this as a compliment. Phil McCracken is to me what you are to Baron Orman Tag, old man.
That bad, huh?
No, we have fun. Sometimes we have fun arguing, but we have fun.
Yeah.
There are people that aren't in here tonight that I know and I've seen. Go ahead, come in. And I'm sorry they're not here. They're missing out on a great program. And I just really honestly feel sorry for some. Well, you know who I'm talking about too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're not in here tonight. And I feel sorry that they're not here because I got a feeling they really missed out a heck of a lot on hearing Michael sound off and pick on me. And Michael's over this kind of stoic face.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
But
Michael's always been the most stoic of all the siblings. In fact, I'll replay just real quick before we go a classic moment from the stream. Michael already knows what it is. So, for context, this is from Animation Friday, and we were reviewing a certain block of the Clone Wars, and we were on an episode, and we were just taking turns roasting this one character whose name was Rush Clovis, and it led to this absolute gem of a moment. After that detour, getting back to the story.
Yeah, back to Punch Face.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just going to call him that for the rest of the episode. So,
I'm going to rush in and punch his face.
So, Padme and Punch Face.
I'm going to punch him right in the Clovis.
Wait, where's that on the bottom? Michael just sitting there thinking, what is going on with these three?
Yeah.
You look like you know.
Yeah. And Dave Bob saying, Paul got beat down by Mexican Iron Man in Nashville. Did I say that? It is true. I was beaten unceremoniously by Mexican Iron Man with a cheap shot.
Oh, Mexican Iron Man, he's got a good one all the time to give you a low blow.
Oh, this wasn't a low blow.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
A lightsaber. Weird.
Oh, yes. Anyways, though, we are going to go ahead and shut this down for the night. So,
the modern version of a Zimmer.
I don't think so.
You know what a Zimmer is?
I don't.
I do not.
The Jewish rabbis, when they went to perform that required event on a young male and did the prime cut on him.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe in universe something like that could be used for something like that, but I feel like that's a bit of a stretch.
We just hope he's got a good shot.
On that note, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you, Dave Bob, for calling me a trooper. Michael's really a trooper. Oh, wait, he's over here. And just remember,
right
everyone, you know what? We may as well bring it back permanently because I can't help but say it. The Force is family. See you guys later.